Hi guys, hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Bimisola Collins if you're new here, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for tuning in again. Today I'm going to be answering a frequently asked question, and the question usually comes in different forms. So I'm just going to give a variation of how the question comes. So some people will ask me, is it possible, I want to come to Canada to study, is it possible for me to be able to pay my tuition while I study, work? Some would say, oh, can I work and study in Canada? Some would say, is it possible for me to pay half of my tuition from before coming back home and then pay the remaining half when I'm inside Canada? If these are the kind of questions you have in mind, I've got you, and we're going to analyze this together. Okay, thank you. So yeah, answering this question, I just want you to keep in mind that this is not a yes or no answer kind of question, because there are several reasons, there are several conditions that are tied to whether or not you would be able to afford to be able to pay your remaining tuition or your full tuition while you study in Canada. Okay, so just follow along with me so that you can pick what relates to you and get your final judgment from whatever I'll be saying. Okay, so yeah, the first thing I'm going to say is, if your intention is to come into Canada to study and you haven't paid up your full tuition, so one thing to also put in mind is the amount of your tuition will depend on the school. It will also depend on how many years of study is this course that you're coming for. Is it going to be a 1 year study or a 2 year study? Keeping in mind that if it's a 2 year study, you would have to pay the tuition twice. That's once every year, of course. And if it's a 1 year study, you just pay the tuition once, right? So if you're thinking to maybe pay the first year, for instance, you're coming in for a 2 year master's and you're looking at paying the first year before coming, and then coming to Canada, work during that period, work while you study for the first year, so that you can be able to save up and pay for the second year of schooling, then yeah, these are the kind of things you need to consider. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is your location. Like you already know, like you must already know that Canada is huge. We have different provinces, and the provinces that kind of sort of independent on their own when it comes to pricing, especially when it comes to cost of living, houses, rent, even transportation. So the first thing you would need to consider is, what province am I going into? I'm going to talk more using Ontario as an example, because I currently live in Ontario. Okay, so if you're coming to Ontario, you want to know that whether or not you'll be able to save as much depends on your cost of where you stay in Ontario. If you're staying in areas like the Greater Toronto area or in Toronto downtown, you know that the cost of living around that place is more expensive compared to if you're going to be living in places that are not too expensive. So if, for instance, your school is in Windsor, or your school is in Durham region, or your school is in Hamilton or Waterloo, you wouldn't, of course, things would be way cheaper around that area if you're living around those areas, compared to if you're living in like, say your school is Humber College and you want to live in Etobicoke, which is within the GTA. Okay, so talking about costs now, I'll sort of break it down a little bit. So let's go to the things that would what I'll term cost of living. The first thing is rent. So how can your rent really affect if you are renting a space that is like a 1-bedroom apartment, for instance? A 1-bedroom apartment will be way more expensive. It will be way more expensive than maybe renting an apartment and sharing an apartment with maybe a couple of other people. So for instance, a 1-bedroom apartment I'm just trying to give an average cost off the top of my head. In the GTA, a 1-bedroom apartment would cost currently could cost about like $1,800, $1,800, $1,900, even $2,000, depending on what area in the GTA you're looking at. There are some other types of living spaces that are called basements. Those ones are relatively cheaper than an actual apartment building, but wherever actually, whether you're living in the basement or whether you're living in a full in an apartment building, bearing in mind that the rent, I'll just use the apartment building cost as an average. So if your rent is about 1,800 in the GTA, the same apartment could cost you about maybe $300 or $400 less if you're living in Waterloo, if your school is maybe in Waterloo, or if your school is maybe in Durham region, for instance, or even Hamilton, somewhere that's outside GTA. Okay, so rent is a huge factor that would determine how much is left in your pocket after you like how much is left to save, obviously. So yeah, you need to consider your location. Another thing with the rent, after the rent and location, is your groceries. So food, cost of food. How much food do you eat? Like, what are the things you eat? Are they more expensive? Do you buy off the rack food? Do you cook your food? There's this research that I saw that showed that an average adult in Ontario, or an average adult in Ontario, I would say around within the GTA area, or even in Ontario in general, would spend about $300 for groceries in a month. So if you add that to the cost of living per month, say your rent is about $1,800 dollars per month, and your cost of food on groceries is about $300, we're already talking $2,100 per month. Okay, so that would be that about location. I'll bring everything up together later. The next thing you need to consider is, what kind of job are we talking about? So the one important point to note is that as a student, you get to be able to work 20 hours off campus per month. 20 hours per week. Sorry, I meant per week. So as a student, you are able to work 20 hours per week while school is in session. And if school is not in session, say you're on holiday, you would be able to work full time. Okay, so now it depends on what kind of job you get while you study. And to be safe, I would assume that maybe you get a minimum wage paying job. You could get higher, definitely, but for the sake of this analogy, I'm going to say you get a minimum wage paying job, which would be, current minimum wage in Ontario right now is $15. So you get a $15 paying job while you work. It would mean that you are able to work $20 a week. 20 hours a week, times $15 per hour. Okay, that would be an average of $300 per week. In 4 weeks would mean you'd be able to earn as high as $1,200. Clearly, from this analogy, I'm bringing back the location and groceries option I said earlier. It already clearly shows that if you're living in an apartment building and your grocery cost per month is $300, apartment building cost is $1,800. There's no how you can afford it with a minimum paying job, really, because that's clearly $1,200, and we already have like $22,100. So that's already a deficit of about $900. So this wouldn't work for you, and you wouldn't be able to save, obviously, because in this case you're already owing. Okay, but on the flip side, if you were sharing the apartment, maybe you were sharing a 3-bedroom apartment and you are not living in the GTA, maybe you rented a 3-bedroom apartment in Waterloo, very close to your school, if your school was Waterloo, and maybe the cost of the 3-bedroom apartment was about $2,400, for instance. If it was $2,400, then you already have and you're sharing it with 2 other students, so you have 2,400 divided by 3, and that would be $800. So your rent would have been $800 in that scenario, and your groceries would be 300. So in that case, you will have 1,100, and you'd have an income of 1,200. You'll be able to save $100. So in all this, we've not even talked about how much your school fees is. So it's in this scenario so far, it doesn't seem possible to be able to pay up, save up for your school fees while working. Okay, another thing I need to note is, when you're on holiday and you can work full-time, of course you know that that amount can double, which will be 2,400, right? Like 2,400, still using the minimum wage. That will be 2,400, because then you can work 40 hours or more if you're willing and able to. Okay, so you can make 2,400 if your income, if your cost still stays the same. Say your rent is still 800 and your grocery is still 300. That's 1,100, and then you're making 2,400. Okay, you already know that you have a savings of about 1,300. In that case, you might be able to save up a lot more while you're on holiday. But then it also depends how much holiday do you have in between. Usually, I think from what I off the top of my head, it's just usually about 3 months. So it might, depending on how much you work, really, you might be able to save up some amount of money depending on what your school fees is. Then another thing you need to touch on is you can also work on campus. So jobs on campus are like, maybe you get a research assistant job, a student organization job. As long as the job is on campus, then you're good, and you would be able to work as many hours as possible in addition to your 20 hours, which makes sense, because you can earn that way. You can earn more money even while you're schooling and you are doing your research assistant job. That is way more feasible, in my opinion, because when you do that, you'll be able to make so much money, like make more money while you study, and even be able to do be able to save up while you study, and you wouldn't have to wait for the holiday period to be able to have a bulk of money. That is what I think here. Yeah, so in my opinion, to just wrap it all up, the kind of job you get and where you live is a very important factor here when you're trying to come to Canada to study and work. Because if you live in a more expensive environment and you go to an expensive school, the cost of living and everything might be overwhelming, such that you won't be able to save up to get that amount that would pay your next school fees. So I hope this helps, really, and I hope I've not been blabbing. I hope the analogy makes sense the way I've explained it. So I think what you would need to do is you need to kind of get an average cost of where your school is, like what's the rent like around that area. See if you're able to share your rent, live in a shared apartment to save cost. And that way you'll be, I think it is very feasible, if you do that, to be able to save up. And also, very important, look out for on-campus jobs in your school. It will really save you a lot of stress regarding costs. Yeah, I hope this helps. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you know anybody that requires this information, please share this video with them. Like the video if it has helped you, and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Thank you so much for watching. You can also ask me questions in the comment section, and I would be more than happy to give my 2 cents on it. Thank you. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.